Caterpillar Foundry in Mapleton, Illinois, runs like a living volcano. Molten iron flows down channels, lighting the factory in an orange haze. The air shimmers with heat. Metal dust hangs thick, coating every surface in gray. Workers in reflective suits move slowly, deliberately, each step calculated, each breath heavy behind a mask. On June 2nd, a 39-year-old man, new to the job, just 5 days in, was assigned to take a sample of molten iron. It was one of the most dangerous tasks on the floor, but to the crew, it was routine. He approached the furnace, a wide steel pit glowing with white-hot metal at 2,600 degrees Fahrenheit. His task was to spin a valve and collect a sample for testing. He positioned the container, leaned closer to ensure the flow was steady, and turned the wheel. The iron poured smoothly, a bright orange stream of heat and danger. He glanced down to check alignment. Then came the sound no one forgets, a quick scuff of a boot against metal. The floor, slick with dust and residue, gave way beneath him. There were no guardrails. He fell backward. The molten iron didn't splash. It swallowed him instantly. Witnesses froze, paralyzed by the sight. The body gone in seconds, the furnace still roaring as if nothing had happened. By the time anyone could react, the temperature and flames made rescue impossible. When investigators arrived, they found a checklist of failures. The floor lacked traction. No safety rail guarded the edge. The worker hadn't been fully trained for that section of the foundry. The man supervising him had left to fetch paperwork. The same plant had faced a similar death just a year earlier. Another worker, another fall, another warning unheeded. OSHA called it entirely preventable. The company called it a tragic accident. But everyone inside the factory knew better. East Texas, thick with pine and diesel. A sawmill hums through the morning, the smell of sawdust clinging to the air. Machines groan, belts spin, and hydraulic arms haul heavy logs across steel conveyors. Every worker wears ear protection, gloves, and the same weary focus of routine. A wood chipper jams mid-shift. The entire line stops. The manager frowns. Downtime costs money. 4 men step in to fix it. Instead of locking out the machine, they loop a thick steel cable around the jam shaft and attach it to a front loader. The plan is simple. Pull the blockage loose. The loader engine revs. The cable tightens. It hums under tension, a quiet vibration, like something alive. The metal stretches, invisible energy building inside. Someone yells to pull harder, then silence. And in the next instant, release. The cable snaps. It whips through the air with a force faster than sound, slicing across the work area. 4 men fall where they stand. One is thrown backward, alive but covered in blood that isn't his. The sound is like a gunshot inside a metal room. Short, final, devastating. When rescue crews arrive, they find helmets split cleanly, faces unrecognizable. The cable had cut through flesh and steel alike. OSHA investigators later calculated the stored energy in that steel line, enough to lift a pickup truck 50 feet in the air. All it took was a single weakness in the cable and one decision to skip the lockout procedure. The sawmill shut down for weeks, but production resumed soon after. Everyone walked slower, quieter. Stored energy doesn't advertise itself. It waits, silent, invisible, until it decides to teach physics the hard way. Russia, winter. A metal fabrication plant hums under harsh white lights. In one corner, a massive horizontal lathe spins a steel shaft the size of a tree trunk. Its rhythm is hypnotic, a low whir, steady and precise. The operator watches the cutting edge carve thin spirals of silver metal, each rotation shaping perfection from chaos. He notices a vibration, a wobble, something just slightly off. He leans closer to check. His sleeve, loose at the wrist, brushes against the spinning cylinder. In an instant, the fabric catches. He's pulled forward, slammed against the machine. The lathe doesn't slow, it accelerates, feeding his body into the spinning mass. The room erupts in screams. Someone hits the emergency stop, but inertia has its own timeline. By the time the machine halts, it's too late. The footage from the factory's camera spreads across the internet within hours. Viewers around the world recoil at the horror, the speed, the inevitability, the helplessness of it. Safety experts use it in training sessions, not for shock, but to show what physics looks like without mercy. The machine didn't malfunction. The system didn't fail. A sleeve did. Loose clothing around rotation. The most ancient rule of industry, forgotten for 1 second. When the factory reopened, management replaced old uniforms with tight-fit protective suits, and banned any fabric near open spindles. One man's mistake became a rule written in policy, training, and memory. In every factory that uses a lathe, the sound of spinning metal now carries an echo, a warning. The machine doesn't hate you, but it doesn't care either. Montreal, Canada. A recycling plant hums with conveyor belts and furnaces turning discarded plastic into new life. The air smells of melted polymer and oil. The noise is constant. Motors, rollers, hydraulic pumps, mechanical music played without pause. It's mid-afternoon when the jam happens. A strip of plastic gets stuck between two rollers, halting production. A 56-year-old worker climbs the ladder for a better view. He's experienced, confident. He's done this before. He doesn't turn off the power. He leans forward, reaching into the machine to pull the jammed piece free. The rollers catch his glove, then his arm. Before he can shout, the machine pulls him in, up to his shoulder. A co-worker hits the stop button, but it takes seconds to wind down. By the time the rollers stop moving, the man is crushed, alive, but beyond saving. Paramedics arrive, but the injuries are catastrophic. He dies before reaching the hospital. The investigation is short and brutal. No lockout/tagout procedure, no machine guard, no supervision during maintenance. The same steps meant to protect him were skipped to save time. Inspectors said later, every control designed to save him had been bypassed for efficiency, a phrase repeated in every report since. Lockout/tagout. It's a simple concept. Turn off, verify, isolate. Yet, in plants around the world, it's skipped for the same reason. It'll just take a second. That second becomes forever. Then there's the night that changed how the world understood industrial risk forever. Bhopal, India, December 3rd, 1984. A pesticide factory operated by Union Carbide leaked 40 tons of methyl isocyanate gas, one of the most toxic substances on Earth. The gas slipped into the cool night air, invisible, heavy, and silent. It rolled downhill into crowded neighborhoods, where families slept with their windows open. People woke coughing, eyes burning, lungs seizing. Some ran into the streets, others never made it out of their beds. By dawn, thousands lay dead. Tens of thousands more were blinded, scarred, or poisoned for life. Inside the factory, everything that could have gone wrong had. The cooling system was off to save power. The scrubbers, designed to neutralize leaks, were disconnected. The flare tower that should have burned off gas was under repair. Even the alarms had been turned off because they caused panic. The disaster became the worst industrial accident in history. Official numbers claimed about 3,700 dead, but survivors groups say the real toll exceeded 15,000. Even decades later, groundwater in Bhopal still carries the residue of that night. It wasn't sabotage or bad luck. It was apathy, negligence layered over years of cutting corners. When investigators visited the control room, they found maintenance logs written in pencil and erased. Safety drills hadn't been held in months. Emergency plans existed only on paper. The tragedy changed industrial law worldwide. Nations created chemical safety codes, disaster management agencies, and environmental oversight boards. But for those in Bhopal, none of that mattered. They still live near the rusting factory shell, its metal eaten by rain and time. Dhaka, Bangladesh. A grey morning in April 2013. The building called Rana Plaza stands heavy with noise. Sewing machines, fans, fluorescent lights humming against cracked concrete walls. Inside, more than 3,000 garment workers sit. Rescuers clawed through the wreckage with bare hands, pulling survivors from pockets of air. Some trapped workers used sewing needles to tap signals. Others texted loved ones from under debris before the battery died. By the time the last body was pulled, 1,134 were gone. Investigators found everything wrong in one building: illegal extra floors, poor concrete, overloading from heavy machinery, and ignored warnings. It wasn't an earthquake, it was greed with a structural load. The disaster forced the world to look at its labels, made in Bangladesh, and see what it meant. From that rubble came new safety accords, factory inspections, and labor reforms. But for those who survived, the noise of collapsing concrete still echoes louder than any promise of reform. A year earlier, a different Dhaka factory burned instead of fell. Tazreen Fashions. It was late November 2012, a Friday evening shift. Workers were finishing overtime orders for foreign clients when sparks from faulty wiring ignited stacked fabric. Flames spread upward fast, feeding on cotton, cardboard boxes, and lint-dusted exhausted air. Alarms sounded, but managers told workers to stay. Small fire, keep working. By the time smoke filled the stairwells, the exits were already locked. The doors were padlocked from the outside to prevent theft. Panic took over. Workers smashed windows and jumped from upper floors. Bodies hit the concrete courtyard below as others screamed from inside the flames. When fire crews arrived, ladders couldn't reach the top floors. By midnight, the factory was a hollow shell and 112 people were dead. The cause was simple: locked doors, no sprinklers, no drills. An echo of every garment factory tragedy before it. One investigator wrote, "The building was designed to trap fire, not escape it." The company called it an unfortunate event. Families called it what it was: murder by negligence. The same year, across the Arabian Sea in Karachi, another fire followed the same script. Ali Enterprises, September 2012. The factory made jeans for export. European labels, global contracts, thousands of pairs a week. That evening, a short circuit lit a pile of cloth near the staircase. Within minutes, smoke filled every corridor. The emergency exits were locked. The windows were barred. Sprinklers didn't exist. Over 250 people were trapped inside. Many suffocated before flames reached them. Others died piled against locked gates, clawing for air. Witnesses outside described hearing fists pounding against steel doors until the sound stopped. When the fire was out, only blackened machines and bodies remained. The factory had recently passed a European safety audit. The certification, investigators later discovered, had been issued without a single on-site visit. In court, the factory owners blamed arson. Forensic teams blamed neglect. Both were half right, because indifference can burn as fast as gasoline. Thailand, 1993. The Carter Toy Factory, one of the largest in Asia, 3 interconnected buildings making stuffed animals and plastic dolls for export. Inside, mostly women worked 10-hour shifts surrounded by cardboard boxes stacked to the ceiling. Fire drills were rare. Exit signs, if any, were in English. On May 10th, sparks from an electrical short set fire to the first building. Supervisors ordered workers to stay put, thinking it was small. Minutes later, the flames hit a chemical storage area. Explosions followed. Workers fled to staircases that collapsed under heat. Others jumped from windows as the upper floors gave way. When the fire was over, 188 people were dead. Most burned, others crushed. Investigators found that the building had been constructed illegally without proper fireproofing. Exits were blocked by boxes. Walls were coated in flammable paint. Fire extinguishers didn't work. It became the worst factory fire in Thai history. The owner fled the country. Survivors rebuilt lives, not trust. Factories across Asia suddenly learned a new phrase: fire load calculation, a measurement no one had bothered with before hundreds paid the price. Massachusetts, USA, 1860, the Pemberton Mill, a symbol of industrial progress in its time. 5 stories tall, powered by steam and ambition. Inside, hundreds of textile workers tended spinning looms, their hands stained by oil and cotton dust. The building hummed with life. Then, one cold January afternoon, the hum turned into a roar. The mill collapsed without warning. Beams snapped like kindling. Iron girders bent like paperclips. In seconds, the floor gave way and dropped hundreds of workers into a pit of debris. Those who survived the fall were trapped beneath rubble and broken machines. Kerosene lamps spilled and caught fire, turning the wreckage into a furnace. Rescuers heard cries beneath the flames but couldn't reach them. By nightfall, 145 were dead. The cause was traced to greed disguised as efficiency. Owners had overloaded the building with new, heavier looms without reinforcing the frame. Profit came first, physics second. The disaster shocked America's young industrial age and led to early building safety codes. It was the beginning of something that every other tragedy since would echo: a preventable collapse blamed on progress. China, 2019. The Tianjia chemical plant in Jiangsu province, March 21st. An ordinary workday in Yancheng's industrial zone. Workers in blue coveralls packed raw chemicals into storage tanks under a haze of ammonia and solvent fumes. At 2:48 p.m., one of those tanks exploded. The shockwave shattered windows miles away. Flames rose hundreds of feet, spreading through warehouses filled with flammable chemicals. Entire trucks were tossed into nearby fields. When the fires finally burned out, 78 people were dead, over 600 injured. Satellite images images showed a crater where the plant used to stand. Residents nearby described their houses shaking like an earthquake. The cause: illegal chemical storage and falsified safety inspections. The company had already been fined 6 times for violations, but kept operating. Government investigators called it a chain of indifference. The explosion forced China to overhaul inspection systems, limiting how much hazardous material could be stored in one site. But like every reform, it was written after the fire, not before. Every alarm, every railing, every drill, they all exist because someone didn't have one when it mattered. Subscribe for more stories like this.